Hello there folks, it is TIJ Gaming. Welcome to a brand new video, and today it is time for another Football Manager 2021 team guide. And today we focus on the Gooners, Arsenal, a club that since Arsene Wenger has left, despite many fans thinking that was a good decision, it clearly wasn't, because they have been on the down since then, finishing worst it's got to be the worst in 30 odd years, surely. 8th position last year. In fact, I'm going to have a quick look at that. I'm very interested. I can't remember where you can find that, but it's got to be somewhere in here. I think competitions, Premier League, there we go. When was the last time they finished below 8th? It is the worst position for Arsenal since 1995. So yeah, not great at all for Arsenal. So they need a recovery, and if you are watching this video, you're clearly probably taking Arsenal on as a challenge and looking to get them back to that classic 4th place glory, or 1 or 2 or even 3 places above that by winning the league. And hopefully in this video I'll give you a few tips and tricks to do that. Now, these team guide videos aren't necessarily for the experienced Football Manager player who's played the game for years and as soon as they get into the game is ready to go. These videos are more for guys who maybe this is their first Football Manager game, or they don't know a lot about Arsenal, or are inexperienced in some element of Football Manager. And for those people, this will hopefully be beneficial. I'll go through the club vision, any new players that Arsenal have got, the dynamics of the teams, a tactic that I'd recommend, and also some young players for the future. But those guys who are experienced at Football Manager can help your fellow FM comrades down below by leaving any comments with suggestions of perhaps youngsters that I might not mention, formation changes that perhaps I won't go through. Again, we've only got 10-15 minutes, so I'm not going to go through every single little element. It's just going to be an overview of 10-15 minute whistle-stop tour of the Arsenal squad. So let's get straight into it, and of course remember to leave a like if you enjoyed today's video. So in terms of the club vision, and that's where we're going to start here today, and we've got two football philosophies, and these to play attacking and entertaining football. You have to say that these two really go hand in hand, don't they? If you're playing attacking football, it's very rare that you're going to play boring football at the same time. So those two should come hand in hand. Also, to sign players under the age of 18 for the future. Now, I recommend personally, especially if you're inexperienced at Football Manager, to go to the responsibility screen, go to transfers and contracts, and go all the way down below to find and sign young players for the future, and delegate these to your head of youth development, who is Per Mertesacker, because hopefully the members of your staff will hopefully take on board these bits of club vision. Of course, you can veto any signing that they're going to make anyway, but signing players under the age of 18 is a fine art, and if you're not too experienced in the game, then you are going to struggle to find, effectively in quotation marks, wonder kids or good players that can be signed for the future. So I think leaving that to Per Mertesacker wouldn't be a bad idea. And it's also a favoured culture that we'd like to develop players using the club's youth system. But again, that's a 1 out of 4. These bars here show how much and how important it is to the club for you to do these things. And as you can see, the likes of working within a wage budget, that is required. That puts your job on the line if you don't do that. If you don't develop players using the club's youth system, the club might have a chat to you about it, but really it's nothing more than a slap on the wrist. If you don't qualify for the Europa League this year, you might find yourself in Stan Kroenke's office fighting for your job. So that's where we're going to go to next. The end of the current season, the club expects to qualify for the Europa League, and I think this is an obvious one. With Arsenal, if you're not qualifying for continental football, then, well, it's not good enough. The club only just got into continental football last year by winning the FA Cup, which is an absolute disaster for Arsenal, considering the last 20 odd years they had under Arsene Wenger. But top 6 or at least top 7. Top 6 are guaranteed European football, and sometimes the cups go your way. In terms of a top 4 club winning that, then you can finish 7th and get into the Europa League. But personally, as an Arsenal manager, I'd be looking to finish somewhere above 7th. But at least you've got a little bit of a contingency plan if you finish 7th potentially. So there are a few other competitions that Arsenal are taking part in this year. We'll firstly focus on the EFL Club, which, funnily enough, the club couldn't care less about. So that's really a competition where you can perhaps look at youngsters. Again, if you go out at the 2nd or 3rd round, they don't really give a monkeys. The other domestic cup, the club want you to reach the semi-final of the FA Cup. And I've said this all through these team guides. If you want to get to the final of the FA Cup, great. Focus on the Premier League. Look at the importance of the Premier League compared to the FA Cup. If you've put all your eggs in one basket, go for the FA Cup, and then only finish 10th in the league, the club are going to be absolutely peed off with you. Other way round, if you put all your eggs in one basket and go for the Premier League and finish second or third, and go out in the third round of the FA Cup, I'll let you figure out which one the club's going to be a bit more happier with. There's also the Community Shield, which is one game against Liverpool on the 29th of August. As a Liverpool fan, make sure you go and lose that one. No, I'm kidding. The club don't care about that, but it'd be a cracking start, wouldn't it, to start with a trophy. And then it's also preferred objectives, not required, and I'm actually quite surprised at that, you know. The club would like you to reach the final of the Europa League, but if you don't get there, it's not the end of the world. So that tells me the club were really disappointed with their league finish last year, and the club really now want to focus on the league and wipe away any bad feeling from that last season. But then, things really start to kick off. At the end of the second season, the club wanted to work towards challenging for the Premier League title, and throughout the 5 years, which the 5-year plan facilitates, they wanted to continue to challenge for the Premier League title. So that tells me, in black and white, we're not too bothered about continentals. We've won enough FA Cups in the last few years. Let's go for the league. That's something that Arsenal haven't done for years. I think it was 2005, 2006 roughly, the last time Arsenal won the league. Actually 2004, was it that Invincible season? It might well have been. But it's been 16 or 17 years now since Arsenal have won the league, and that's something clearly the club are dreaming of. So domestic success is something you're definitely going to have to focus on. The club not necessarily bothered about continental success. I wouldn't say not necessarily bothered, but domestic success is definitely more important. So, in terms of the new players screen, then there is one big signing that screams out to me this year. The 45 million signing of Thomas Partey, the Ghanaian from Atletico Madrid in Spain. A 45.5 million signing for Arsenal. I can't think of many signings that Arsenal have made which top that. I don't think it's their record signing, but it's got to be up there. I think Nicolas Pepe for 70 odd million has got to be their record signing. But a very good central midfielder. You have to say that Arsenal needed a central midfielder. They've got a few youngsters. They've got the likes of Dani Ceballos, but of course he's only on loan. But you've got a little bit of dead wood, I'd argue, in here. You've got Mohamed El Neni, who's, you know, a decent player, but only a decent player. Thomas Partey really shores up that midfield, and he's not necessarily a creative midfielder, but as you can see, the box-to-box midfielder can both defend and attack. He's really a master of all trades, hopefully, not just a jack of all trades, fingers crossed, but a good signing, you should look to use him. The second biggest signing was Gabriel from Lille in France, the player from Brazil. The 22-year-old is Gabriel, and again, defence was one of Arsenal's poor areas. You have to say that Mikel Arteta's done quite well, actually, to shore up that defence. I think what Arsenal needs to do under Emery was quite simple. It might have seemed simple on the face of it, perhaps, but to me, they've got the attacking, they've got the attackers, they've got Aubameyang, they've got Lacazette, they've also got some youngsters who we'll talk about in a little while. But at the back, David Luiz making too many mistakes. You've got that constant merry-go-round of Socrates, Rob Holding, Shokran Mustafi, and you just needed someone who was a bit more solid in there, and I think Gabriel really ticks that box. £22 million at the young age of 22, $1 million for every year he's been born. But he's had some good experience at Lille. He had a full season there last year with 24 goals, and 24 goals, 24 appearances, and a further 14 the year before. As a young player, he's got plenty of experience, and he's got a 5-year contract, so the club really believe in him, and he has got to be a first choice for you. A few free signings here, and just another one to go over is Alex Runnison, who has come in to replace Emiliano Martinez, who's gone to Aston Villa as a second choice for the Gooners. Again, Martinez has gone to Aston Villa. A good sale for Arsenal, but I think some fans have felt a little bit aggrieved about that. And as you can see, some of the youngsters go out and on loan. Lucas Torreira, he's not really a youngster, he's 24 years of age. Guendouzi, only 21. He could improve in the future, but what his determination's 10, his work rate is 15. But at the end of last year, he had some quite poor not necessarily work rate, but his attitude wasn't quite right in real life, so he hasn't played a game since. Mkhitaryan's gone on a free, but there's nothing significant there. Maybe those two players going out on loan is one to watch, and perhaps to bring them back at the end of the year and see what you can do with them. There's also a defender, Mavranopoulos, who's gone out on loan to Stuttgart. He was signed for the club a few years ago for a few million. It's not quite worked out for him yet, but once he comes back from loan, he might well be a good backup. So I would calm down a little bit. I wouldn't be buying any more centre-backs at this point, because you have got a youngster there who you can take advantage of. So the dynamics then for Arsenal, if you look at the hierarchy, there are 3 team leaders. You've got, well, this is a story in itself. The 31-year-old Mesut Ozil, who at the start of the game, is transfer listed. Personally, I think that is absolutely balmy. Luckily, in game, there's none of the politics. Yes, he's a bit aggrieved and grumpy. There's none of the politics that you've got in real life, but he's on £350,000 a week. But he can still do a job. He can still absolutely do a job. Perhaps try and run the contract down. You know, I guess offer him out to clubs. Perhaps see what you can get for him. Do you weigh up having another year of Ozil's services, or perhaps cashing in £10 million for him? You make your decision there, but personally, I'd take another year of Mesut Ozil. See if he improves, see if he's happier. And, well, if something doesn't happen, try and sell him in January. But I don't think it's worth selling him yet, particularly because you'll lose a team leader. And early on into your save, that could be a disaster. Other two team leaders are Aubameyang and Willian. Willian is a new signing for Arsenal. I didn't cover him earlier on, but he's a free signing from Chelsea. A very solid one. On a lot of money, though, at £100,000 at the age of 32. But he is definitely the strongest right winger if you take Aubameyang out of the game. Obviously, Aubameyang is more likely to play on the left. Xhaka is a highly influential player. Personally, I think he'll move into that team leader role. You've got the likes of Bellerin, who is a vice-captain. I don't see any problems there. Maybe Thomas Partey might move into those team leader roles. But ultimately, that will change over time. For Arsenal, there's no short-term qualms. I guess what you decide to do with Mesut Ozil could change that. Let's have a look at the tactic I've suggested then for Arsenal. For the first time this season, I have gone with a control possession tactic. Nothing quite seemed right with Arsenal. They didn't seem like the type of team that would play a gegenpress. Tiki-taka didn't seem quite right. There was no perfect tactic, so I thought, well, let's try and get Arsenal to control possession. We've got Leno in the sticks, Bellerin holding Gabriel and Tierney at the back. I think that's the only back four you can play in terms of a first choice. I don't think any of the other players justify a first choice. Of course, backups, yes, Luiz is a good backup. Maitland-Niles is Mr. Versatile. He can play anywhere across the back apart from centre-back. He's awkward there, but he can play as a defensive midfielder and as a central midfielder. So a very versatile player, a good one to have on the bench as an impact player. Kolasinac, I thought he was a good player when he come into Arsenal, but he seems to have fallen behind Kieran Tierney and even Bukayo Saka in the order at Arsenal. So maybe he might be one you look to cash in on, potentially, as a player that might leave the club. El Neni on the bench as well. I don't know why I'm going through the bench, by the way. Let's look at the players on the pitch. Xhaka and Partey on the midfield roles. We've got Xhaka as a more defensive midfielder, remembering, of course, that these two wing-backs are on supporting roles. So you need a bit more in terms of defence. You don't want that to be wide open. So Xhaka is on defence. Remember, of course, this is a fairly young centre-back pairing, with Holding only being 24 and Gabriel 22. So the experience of Xhaka at the ripe old age of 27 should give you a little bit more security at the back there, with Partey in his top role as box-to-box midfielder. We've got Willian, Ozil and Aubameyang on the wings. I think really either inverted winger or inside forward. Either or is okay, but I haven't got time to go through all of these today. But if you're looking at your different roles, the descriptions of the roles and a nice animation of what the player will do is down here. Ozil at centre attacking midfield. Personally, he is the man to do that. There's no other player who can do that like he is. In fact, I don't think there's a backup option really for him there. I think he's the one and only player who can play that. I suppose Willian can play there, but nobody else with any serious any serious skill. Danny Ceballos is a player I've missed out on. I'm going to put him on the bench ahead of El Neni. He's a player that for some reason I missed out on and completely forgot about. But a 24-year-old, a cracking player really. You might well put him in ahead of Xhaka. But Xhaka being the more defensive midfielder, we don't want two attacking midfielders. We've already got that in Mesut Ozil, and we might risk leaving ourselves too short at the back. But Danny Ceballos, again, could come in over Xhaka. That's really personal preference. So that's the tactics done. So as the last segment of the video, we're going to have a quick look at the youngsters to watch screen. You've got your report done here by Per Mertesacker. You might recognise him, former Arsenal player, now the head of youth development at the club. And this is a really handy screen as a quick look at your youngsters. You can see your first team candidates, any young players in the under-23 squad that potentially could be looked at moving up. You've got William Saliba, a centre-back at the age of 19 who joined for 27 million last year. That just shows how poor some of Arsenal signings have been when they're signing a player for 27 million and I've never even heard of him. But, well, for that sort of money, I'm sorry, you've got to go straight in the first squad. He has got to go straight in the first squad. We cannot have a 27-year-old languishing down in the under-23s. Emil Smith-Rowe, he's 20 years of age, a club product through the youth system. He's been out on loan to RB Leipzig and Huddersfield and got a little bit of game time. I think another year of game time somewhere out on loan would be beneficial, but maybe the natural successor to Mesut Ozil in that centre of a three-man group at the attacking midfield. Let's see how that one goes. Gabriel Martinelli, another winger as well. Again, he's a player that was bought from Brazil for 6 million, and it looks like he could be a good player. Following Balogun, 19 years of age, also a club prospect. And this 2-star means that they're a decent rating for the first team. So certainly good enough for the cups. A few other players that perhaps are worth mentioning. You can look at your under-23 and under-18 squad here. You can see there's a lot of players with potential. Joel Idaho has showed himself quite well as a youngster. A player who's only come in this year for an undisclosed fee from Ajax. So he could be somebody, Ajax have a pretty good youth tunnel in terms of the players that they funnel through there. They bought him there from Willem, so we'll see how good he is, but he certainly looks like a player who could develop. There's a few other players here as well that look pretty good. Under 18 squad, let's have a quick look at that before we finish. Players like Mauro Bandera could develop, but with the under 18 squad it's always tricky because of course a lot of these players are 16 or 17 years old. Ultimately, their potential is, you can see here that he's potentially could be between 2.5 and 3.5 stars, and that's the difference between him being a first team star or potentially being sold for a profit. So I'd keep an eye on these guys, but you've got a good youth development system here with Arsenal, particularly from an attacking standpoint. I think you've got Smith Rowe, Martinelli and Ben Cottrell that are quite exciting, Idaho as well. But there's not really much at the back, I suppose, in terms of development. But you have got some young centre-backs in the squad. So potentially, do you need any centre-backs in that youth development scheme? Figure that one out for yourself. But you've got Holden, you've got Gabriel. You have got, of course, Saliba, who now comes in as third choice. You've also got I can't pronounce his name, and that really annoys me. You've also got Mavranopoulos out along. You've got Pablo Mari, who is another player I don't recognise, who they've signed for 10 million. Again, really, Arsenal seem to have shored up the defence. And again, another player who could come in. Admittedly, I've never heard of Pablo Mari, but looks like to be a pretty decent player. So I think David Luiz, he's a decent player, but makes far too many mistakes for me. So he's one that, at the end of his contract this year, sorry, see you later, bye-bye. We're going to set him for release because it's just not going to happen. Arsenal are a team who are really turning a corner. I feel like this is a nice young backline. Okay, Bellerin's the ripe old age of 25, but Tierney's 23. Obviously, Thomas Partey is 27. You've got some experience up front, and that's what you need. But you have got the likes of Eddie Nketiah, Reece Nelson, Joe Willock. Some really good youngsters coming through, and of course you've got the guys out on loan as well. So Arsenal actually is a really, really exciting save for the future. Well, that's going to be the end of today's Team Guide. I hope you guys have found that beneficial. If you have, please leave a like on the video. That really helps the video to be seen by more people. Also, comment your thoughts well. If you've got any questions, feel free to ask. I'm sure myself or any one of your other FM comrades will leave a response down in the comments. For those of you who are more experienced at Football Manager and have watched this video, is there anything I've missed out? Any youngsters who are a lot better than I have said they are? Or is there something that I've said and it might be a little bit incorrect? Let us know down in the comments. And also remember to subscribe for regular Football Manager content during the beta. We're doing a Wolves beta save at the moment, so make sure to check that out to see more of me actually managing a club rather than telling you guys how to manage a club yourselves. Anyway, thank you for your company. I have been TIJ Gaming, and until the next video, I will see you guys later. Goodbye for now.